All right, so today I'm going to show you how to merge people through the API in Customer IO. This is for non-technical people. So if you're an engineer, you probably know how to manage this on your own, probably from the product or however you built the API. But sometimes as marketers, sending requests over to engineers takes a long time. So I want to show you how I figured that out on my end. Customer IO is really powerful that way. You can do a lot of kind of technical stuff and not be a technical person to do it. So I had this use case with a client the other day and needed to fix a bunch of duplicates that got into the system, and I'm going to show you how that worked. So this is from Customer IO's docs, and it essentially just says this is how you merge people via the API. And the reason you have to do it like this is that there is kind of like an interface way to manually merge individual records in Customer IO, but at a mass level, like if you've got thousands of records that you know need to be merged, it's a little more difficult to manage that. And so the more mass level is done this way. So Customer IO in their campaigns and workflows allow you to make webhook calls, which is a form of this. And if you essentially do this in a webhook, it will allow you to merge duplicates. So now the tricky thing is that you have to get enough data within a single record to identify both duplicates so that they can be merged together. So there might be a little bit more work for you to do, but I'll talk about that here in a second. So to get there, you go to campaigns and you'll create a campaign. You don't need to create like goals, or you can just put in your segment that you're eventually going to have duplicate users with. But I want to show how to actually build it. So you will drag and drop this send and receive data onto the canvas. It's this webhook, and then just name it duplicate call or something like that, and then you'll click edit request. Let me give you how it happened in my case. Engineering made an update. A bunch of duplicate records came in, and they ended up using, instead of the product ID for that record, they associated the email address as the ID. So it created a duplicate where you had one record with a new alphanumeric ID and then their normal email address in the email attribute. But then in this other, for the ID, they had the email address and then the email attribute was blank. And that duplicate record was getting the first confirmation email, and then everything else was going to this other record. So that's a problem because I wouldn't know certain things about signups. All right, so I have my two records, and luckily for me, the original record would then have all the information I would need. Because when you build this, you need to identify the primary record and the secondary record. The secondary record is the one that's going to be merged to the primary, and the primary will be kept. And we have to identify them somehow. So in my case, the ID was what I was using, and on the primary record, the ID is correct, right? And then on the secondary record, I would look at for their email because that's the ID for the duplicate record. And then that's how I would mirror up the two. So in the docs, it gives you this sort of detail on how it needs to be done. But this isn't how it is pasted and done in the workflow step, right? This webhook is a little bit different. It's somewhat similar, but just you have to put things in different places. So ChatGPT actually helped me do this, and it walked me through some of the steps. So if you don't know how to do something, taking docs like this and saying, hey, these are the documents that say how I need to merge someone in the API. How do I do this in a webhook in Customer IO? And then it can start guiding you. You can start asking clarifying questions, and that's how I got it. So I'll skip that step for you so that you can learn how to do it. So when you look at this, it has all these two headers here, and what you would see here is you need the site ID and the API key. Okay? So to get those, I'm going to actually just duplicate this tab. You would go to your workspace settings. You'll come to API and webhook credentials. And then it comes up with your site ID and your API key. These are the ones you're going to copy, and they're separated with a colon so that they would look like this. But when you come to your webhook, they're supposed to go in a header, and you can actually see here that, so there's two headers here. There's this content type of the application JSON, which I have here. And then there's the authorization where you need your site ID and your API key. But they can't just be pasted like this, site ID : API key. They have to be encoded in this base 64. Now, honestly, I have no idea what that means. I'm not technical, but I know it has to be done. So there are, again, I asked ChatGPT and it gave me instructions on how to do this. So on Windows, and you can see there was Mac and OS and Linux users down there, but on Windows it says use PowerShell. So, okay, I brought up PowerShell, this commandish looking type program, and I just have to run the following command. So I'd get my site ID and the API key, and it even gives me like an example here of what that might look like. And so if I'm going to copy this, and it says, it has all this, it's converting to the space string, and then I put that in there, I should get this output. So if I come to PowerShell and I put this in, it starts with YWJ, the output is YWJ, couple equal signs at the end. It worked. So this is what you would copy, this whole thing is what you would copy and come paste right there. So it'd be basic space, then this encoded site ID : API key that's encoded in this base 64. That's what you would paste there. You can then test this. So you would send a test. It will test it on whatever record you've got in here. And I've already run the duplicate on me, so it's not really going to work. But when you send this test, it'll use this record that came in, and then it'll look for another record where the ID is the email address, and it'll try and merge them. So if things fail, which in this case it did because I used a fake API key, you'll get this unauthorized error. That just means that you didn't format or do your API and site ID right, and you just have to figure out where you went wrong. You can use ChatGPT to help troubleshoot, and that's pretty helpful. Eventually, you should be able to get it. You'll get this 200 success message. And then what you can do then is then go back to the people screen in Customer I/O, search for a person where their ID equals the email address, and they should be gone. If that happens, then your test was successful. And then all you need to do is build a segment that for the trigger that will all the duplicate users, and again, you're wanting ideally probably the one that has both details of information that will help you identify the duplicates. That's going to be in your segment, and then you'll call those fields here. Okay? So hopefully that is helpful and clear. A little bit technical for those that are of non-technical minds, but it's totally doable. And then you don't have to involve your engineering team. Thanks.